Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Around the Bases with Bubba and Mo, episode 33. I am Bubba. You can find me on Twitter at BDintric. And as always, joined by my co-host, Mo. You can find him on Twitter at Boston_Mo. Mo, all things considered, how are you doing?
Well, rest in peace to the Boston Red Sox. 9 days away from my wedding, whatever it is. So I guess all things aren't as bad right now.
Yep, rest in peace, the Red Sox. Pretty soon, rest in peace the rest of your life. It's just funny. I'm kidding. I'm happily married.
I set you up for that one. I was hoping you were going to do it, and you did it. So, well, the episode Larry Bird has treated us well. We're getting there.
Yeah. I mean, the October of 2017, you'll never forget.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's get at it. We have 4 series going on. We'll kick it off with your guys' series in the ALDS. Some of these series have been pretty tight. Some, it's weird because you guys lost 3-1, but it really wasn't that it wasn't tight. They're pretty darn close games, at least in Boston. Let's just kick it off. We'll bounce around some topics here. What were your thoughts on AJ Hinch, the way he used Verlander in Game 4 yesterday?
I thought it was very weird. It was almost like they were in the Red Sox position where they were going to be eliminated if they didn't win the game. I find it as very weird that he probably doesn't trust most of his bullpen guys, which I alluded to on our last episode about Davinsky and a couple other guys. I mean, their bullpen, this is including the Verlander. 2 2/3 yesterday, 15 2/3, 5.96 ERA in the playoffs. I know, short sample, but I alluded to how they weren't that great of a bullpen, and I thought they were easily third in terms of the bullpens in the AL going into the playoffs. Now they're going to be obviously behind both of the Indians and the Yankees as well. I don't know why you would have done that, because you didn't need to do that. Especially, I thought Musgrove has been good in the bullpen role, that kind of long role. And when I'm not comparing Musgrove to Verlander, but you want Verlander fresh for that Game 5 start, because that's what you traded for him. That's why you traded for him in an elimination game, to go out and give you 7 innings of ball, and then go to Keuchel if you need to. If you really want to win that game and it's close, then you go to Keuchel for an inning, because maybe it's his bullpen day, and then you go to Ken Giles, or you go to Ken Giles for 2 like you did yesterday. So I didn't like it, and I especially didn't like him coming in the middle of an inning. That's neither here nor there. I didn't really like it, but it ended up working. He gave up that, and I was going to say bomb, but it was like he was only hit 90 miles per hour by a StatCast, which was like the lowest hit mile per hour home run of the year, I believe, something like that, or one of the lowest, because that's just the pesky pole. So if you hit it down in that area and you get under it, it's going to get there. So I didn't like it. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I was very frustrated with it. It bugged me for the fact that it was Verlander's first ever appearance out of the bullpen, ever. And we've talked about it on this show. You've probably talked about it elsewhere. I've talked about it elsewhere. Baseball players are such creatures of habit. It's already asking a starter a lot to go get loose, to come in like the middle of a game period. To now have him come in the middle of the inning where he's already starting out of the stretch, it's a whole different mind thing. Because you even saw it like the next inning on, he was pretty good. He pitched really darn good after that, once he kind of got in his rhythm and had a real baseball game. So I didn't like that at all. You bring in one of your relievers, finish the inning off. You go to a guy like Doug Fister. I know he's not great, but you got – not Fister. He's on your team. I'm thinking of I'm blanking out on the frickin' the big old – oh, this is stupid. He pitched really good in the middle. Who?
What'd you say?
Who was the pitcher that pitched great in the middle of the season and then he got ballooned again?
Fister. Yeah, Fister did. He started Game 3.
No, I'm talking about for the Astros.
Oh, for the Astros. McCullers?
No, not McCullers. McCullers pitched in Game 3. Now he was a starter for him. This is going to bug the heck out. We played him in DFS. Who?
Charlie Morton?
No, Morton pitched started game 4.
So you're saying, oh, God.
It's on the tip of my tongue now. Big old guy he threw at Valbuena's head.
Threw at Valbuena. Fears.
Fears, thank you. Fister Fears. I was at least close. God, great radio.
Fires,
great radio.
Fears, whatever you call it. Fires. Yeah. I don't know. Again, I'm not the guy.
You could have brought him in for a part of it. There's a lot of angles you could have done. And then I'm glad you mentioned the part on Benintendi's homer. It's Dan Williams. He works with StatCast and all that stuff. He put the stadium out there, like the biggest stadium in baseball, and then it showed where it would have landed in every other stadium.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
It was like the only place it would have left the ballpark. It was at Fenway in that spot. It was pretty cool to see that kind of thing. But I didn't like it at all. It worked out for Hinch, but I agree. You want Verlander starting Game 5. If you would have used him and then he went to Game 5 and you couldn't have him available to start, that's bad. That's really bad. The Astros, they looked great in Houston. You guys got to him in Game 3. You got to the bullpen late. Jackie Bradley did something for you finally. And then you guys were right there. Kimbrel had probably one of his worst outings of the year. Just happened at the worst possible time. It's just the way it goes sometimes. What are your thoughts on the Astros? Is this your favorite going forward from what we've seen from Cleveland, or are you sticking on Cleveland if they advance?
Oh, I think I'm going to stick with Cleveland. I find, and we'll get into Cleveland a little bit later, but it was kind of weird the way things are going there. We'll get into them later, but that lineup for the Astros is scary. There is no doubt about it. But I just was trying to get up the MLB postseason schedule to see when you got. Well, yeah, when does the ALCS start?
Friday night, NLCS Saturday night.
So you're talking Friday night. So okay, Monday. So Verlander will be fine to go. The Astros are set up in terms of pitching. You know, they'll have everyone ready to go. The bullpen will have plenty of rest. So I think it's closer than we think, but I'm still leaning Cleveland. And even if the Yankees get by, Yankees are scary. I mean, the Judge thing is a little, he had the home run in the wild card game. He had the double yesterday, but struck out almost every other time. He looks awful at the plate. He's back into his little funk that he was in mid-July to August. I think the Yankees are very, very scary with the way the bullpen's pitching and just the bats. So I think I'd have the Indians and the Yankees over the Astros right now, just because I think the Astros pitching is so-so. I just don't think that they have the bullpen. That 7-game series with them will be long. They'll hit. You won't see Kluber do what he does, do what he did in Game 2. I still have the Astros. I still have them behind the Indians, and it's close with the Yankees. It really is. I think the bullpen with the Yankees and just the bats overall, I think they don't have them offensively, but I mean the Yankees bats will do enough to help that bullpen, and Severino will be ready too.
Yep, I can't hate on that at all. You look at the what Severino did last night. We're obviously recording on Tuesday. What he did on Monday night in Game 4 was outstanding, and it's something I wrote in my article on the website. Was the wild card game worried me. It's his first ever postseason start. Like, there's a lot to be said about that. Most guys do struggle. Quintana's a different story, but Severino, he showed it, and he came back and looked filthy yesterday. We tweeted on the handle, his 107th pitch was 100 miles an hour. The guy was feeling it. He was doing it. That's huge. I like Houston a ton, but you nailed it. Their bullpen is so suspect. And unless they can get the starter to go all the way to Giles, who's been outstanding, and there's a great article out there, I believe it's on The Athletic, that came out today, or it's on Fangraphs, one of the two, that it took 2 years for the trade to pay off, but it finally is paying off for Houston. And because this is what they needed last time they got knocked out of the postseason, was that closer. I don't think they can get it there, though, so that's the problem. I think the winner of Cleveland Yankees is going to be very, very live. But we'll get to them some more here in a bit. All right. I'm going to let you have your moment number one here. Farrell took a bullet. for Pete yesterday. Does that gain any brownie points in your book?
I said good for John because I thought good for manager John because I thought that he was arguing with him. He came out after the game and said he was trying to get Pedroia out of there. Obviously wasn't. And I got his voice in my head, so now I'm like going to freak out because I hate hearing the sound of his voice and the way he talks and some of the words he uses. He basically said he didn't argue balls and strikes. He didn't use any, derogatory terms. So I don't know why Wagner threw him out. I give Wagner credit because he was walking away from Pedroia, which is what you need to do, especially in a situation where you're in a game 4 of a playoff game. You're not going to throw the player out, even though I would have loved him. Here's my take here. I would have been more happy to see Pedroia thrown out than John Farrell. This is how bad Pedroia has been, and this is what pisses me off this year. There's going to be, I'm not going to do it on this podcast, but there's going to be a podcast when we either go over the Red Sox season or preview next season where I'm just going to just hammer Pedroia because this guy, I remember when he signed the contract 4 or 5 years ago, he could have been a free agent at the same time as Cano. And I said, I didn't think he'd get Cano money, but he would have gotten a lot more money. And we said how good the contract is. The contract sucks now. He's done. He just can't. He's hurt every year. He has a lingering injury. Might have to have knee surgery that it will take him 6 to 8 months to recover. He can't. He has no pop in that bat anymore. And it's really sad because we all loved Pedroia when he was kind of he wasn't the leader because Ortiz was there and other guys were there. Now he's just sort of the leader, but he's not as good as he was, so he can't really lead that way. But that's neither here nor there. I think John Farrell should be fired as the manager of the Boston Red Sox because I think there's a power struggle there. I don't think Price likes him. Not that I'm saying to get fired because of that. I think there's some sort of rift in the locker room. He's obviously a terrible game manager. I hate his voice. I hate the way he talks. But my gut feeling says nothing happens. I don't know why. I just think there was a rumor a couple weeks ago that he bought a condo in Charlestown, which is kind of in the city, really nice area, for $1 million. So that means he might be still there. I don't think anything happens there. That's just what I think.
Well, that's not good. We've been cheering for that all season long. So that would be a massive disappointment.
No, it's good for our podcast. It's good content.
Oh, they do have that. That is great content. A weekly feral rant's always a good thing.
Yes.
And like you said, we'll recap the Red Sox season later in the summer or in the winter time. Any last words on your Red Sox?
I can't even believe this whole postseason. I think you can agree overall has been a very, very weird and different postseason. You have Brian Kenny in the wild card game saying they should start Chad Green. He pretty much almost was right. He's been calling every bullpen move possible for a starter. The Red Sox starters went in 4 games, went 12 1/3 innings, and had 11.16 ERA. They had three of the 4 where the guy didn't get to the 4th inning. The only one that the guy did get to the 4th inning, past the 4th inning, was Chris Sale, and he allowed 6, 7 earned runs, whatever it was. You were never, ever going to win this series. If they somehow got to Game 5 with that stat, it would have been insane. It would have been a crazy, crazy series loss if the Astros had done it. It would have been one of the biggest choke jobs of all time, in my opinion. Sneaky, because of what the starters did. The bullpen was amazing. David Price, Mr. Unique Elbow, was incredible. When he was out there, it was like, I'm not going to say it was like Pedro in his prime, but like it was, everyone was excited to see him out there, which is the first time that you can say that in a Red Sox uniform in the 2 years. Hope and pray that he gets that there so he opts out. Just give you a couple more things, and I'm not going to rant the whole time because I could. In the game yesterday, Benintendi gets doubled up at first base. Now, hot shot by Mookie Betts to third base. Can't get double, or second base, whatever it was. You can't get doubled up there because the next at bat, Mitch Moreland hit it down the right field line. Would have been either second and third at worst with 1 out, but it wasn't. and we didn't get a run. And actually, you know why we didn't get a run there? Because we sent them on a little blooper, and he was about 150 feet away. I could have thrown the guy out. I need like rotator cuff surgery. I can't throw. Don't throw a softball under him. And then I didn't agree. If you're going to bring Sale on for 4 innings, you start him. You don't take the chance that Porcello's going to blow up, which he almost did. He somehow got out of it, but there's so many base runners and so many hard hit balls that were right at guys that he got so lucky, and so did John Farrell in the organization. So you would have never got to Sale there. So I didn't agree with that. It ended up almost working out. They might have left him out for 1 inning too much. I said that it would have been okay. But you know what? I went and watched it back. In the 7th inning, he was losing it. So I guess I was wrong there. And the last thing I'll say, this is the 2nd year in a row that they've acquired a setup guy. They've identified a guy to go get, to be your setup guy to get to Kimbrel, Addison Reed. Why do we not trust him there? That's the guy you went to get. So you go let him pitch that inning. I don't understand it. It's either organizationally or it's John Farrell doesn't trust because it's not his guy. It's really mind-boggling to me. And again, like you said, we'll talk about it more this winter. A lot of things need to happen to get either a clubhouse guy in here or whip these guys into shape somehow, because this is not this. I hate rooting for this team. I really do. I've said it all year, and that's how I'm going to end on that.
I'm just glad you said a nice thing about David Price. That's what I was hoping for.
It's incredible, isn't it? Like we've gotten to this point where I hate rooting for this team, but I loved David Price over the last week.
Mm-hmm. Pretty awesome.
Okay, I'm going to breathe for a second. I know everyone loves those rants, even though I go way too long. Let's go to the Cubs Nationals before we start. So the Cubs are obviously up 2-1. That was the series has been pretty good. I haven't seen. I saw a lot of the game yesterday. I haven't seen a ton of the games before, but the game got rained out tonight. Let's just start with this right here, Bubba. I'm going to go right into it. Dusty Baker has announced that Tanner Roark is his starter tomorrow when they play that game versus Arrieta. We already knew Arrieta was getting the ball no matter what. Strasburg gets an extra day of rest and pitch tomorrow. He's going to go Tanner Roark. Do you think he goes through with it and give us some sort of rant on what is Dusty Baker doing?
I don't want to even try to imagine what Dusty Baker is doing because, like, literally, someone needs to just put him in a home. It's like you don't want to see old people drive. Well, I think he's at that age where he's just senile and should not be managing a baseball team. And the craziest part is it was like the day before Game 1, they came out and the Nats said they offer him a 2 or 3 year extension to come back. Like, you thought you had it bad in Boston. This is unbelievable. Tanner Roark, he's had an okay season. I'm going to say okay. He had a really good middle of the season. He's finishing pretty disastrous. If you have the option to go Strasburg for 5 really, really good innings, heck, then you can bring Tanner Roark in. If Strasburg doesn't have it, then you bring Tanner in. You don't do it the other way around. I just don't understand what he's doing. It is unbelievable. He's made other horrible, horrible managerial decisions. It cost him Game 3. But we'll get into that in a minute. What are your thoughts on this no Strasburg thing?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It really, really makes zero sense at all. He's got Saturday, Sunday, Monday. He's going to have his regular rest. It really – now I hope someone, Mike Rizzo or someone at the top of the organization gets to him and kind of says, Dusty, what the hell are you doing? You have to start Strasburg. You have to. But, you could see and Tanner Roark is not Rick Porcello. He's at a much better year than Rick Porcello, but you could see a Red Sox situation where Strasburg could come in and pitch 5 innings in the middle of it. I'm not sure if that's what they'll go ahead and do, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Let's go back to Dusty Baker. He didn't use Doolittle twice. Little weird in the bullpen situation. What do you got on Sean Doolittle?
This one baffles me. Scherzer's throwing a gym. No hitter through 6. Gives up a double to Benny Zobrist. It happens. Zobrist knows how to – he comes through with these hits in the postseason for the Cubs. It's what he does. But Scherzer wasn't even at 100 pitches yet. They were worried coming into the game about his health, his hamstring and everything. Pretty sure through 6 no-hit innings where he's racking up Ks, I think things are fine. I'm no doctor, but I think things are fine. I leave my horse out there. I'd rather have him than Solis, who they brought in. Solis with a 5+ ERA. 5+. Come in, they pinch hit Albert Almora Jr., who is phenomenal against left-handed pitching. So that backfired because Almora hits the knock and ties the game up. Then an inning or two later, they get Bryant out, or they walked him, can't remember. Rizzo comes up, and they go to Oliver Perez instead of Sean Doolittle. Let me remind you that Doolittle has he's great against lefties and righties, so it wouldn't matter who you pinch hit him for. And Rizzo is one of the best left-handed hitters in all of baseball versus left-handed pitching this year. He's torched them. Absolutely torched them. These moves are like, if I'm an owner of a team, and we've talked how many times the Nationals are on a very, very short leash, like a limited time, you are blowing a golden opportunity. That was a game you need to win with Scherzer. We said it with like the Red Sox when Sale starts. We say it when the Indians with Kluber. We might see that backfire tomorrow night. Your ace has to win. It's that simple. And he had you there. He took you to the spot to win, and you gave it away because you're an imbecile, an absolute moron. It makes you wonder, why did you trade for Doolittle, Kinsler, and Madsen? Madsen, I don't think got used either. Didn't get used at all.
He did not.
Kinsler went over an inning, and the best part about it is Dusty Baker is so freaking clueless. And yes, I still have pent-up aggression from 2002. But in the postgame, people are asking him what his decision-making process was, and he literally had no answers until like 6 or 7 stutters later. He came out with some BS response about like, well, that was just the best option at the time, or some crap like that. It was unbelievably horrible. And the fact that he still has a job and people want to keep him around longer, I don't understand it. Crazy.
You have to compare this to poker a little bit. Like, Texas Hold'em, you're trying to think moves in advance on what you're going to do depending on what happens. Obviously, Scherzer had a no-hitter. He allowed a couple hits, whatever. He's at 98 pitches. I actually didn't mind it based off of, I know he said he's healthy, got extra rest with the hamstring, but there were times during the regular season that everyone was saying, like, I think one time he had either a no-hitter or a perfect game where he had like 118 pitches, and then he let up a hit, and it's like he still leaves him in. There were so many games during the regular season where it was like, I know he's your horse, but you have to protect him a little bit because the division's over. Well, no, I get that part, but your bullpen guys they're not tired. All your bullpen guys are rested. So why you put this guy in and then Madden goes and outmanages you and puts the Almora in, who, like you said, crushes lefties. So you really outmanaged him there. It didn't make any sense to me. Like you said, you traded for 3 guys that were your 3 best relievers in the second half of the season for the most part. So I didn't get that.
It's like you just said. It's like a game of poker or chess. Like, if anybody's seen the movie Little Big League, where the kid takes over the Twins and they're in the front office, and he asks the kid, like, what would you do in this situation? And he starts naming off, well, who's in the bullpen? Who's on the bench? He analyzes everything a manager is supposed to analyze. Apparently, Dusty can't figure that out.
And this is going to take us into our next topic, where Dusty Baker had to be completely on his game in terms of changing pitchers at the right times and having the right guys ready. The Nationals' offense is just disappeared all of a sudden. They're batting 121 with a 200 OBP, 431 OPS. Trey Turner at the top of the order does not have a hit. He's 0 for 12. Bryce Harper has 2 hits. One of them's a homer, thank God. But there isn't a guy batting over 300 in the series for that team. Is it nerves for some of the younger guys? I mean, what is it? Is it just somehow the Cubs pitching woke up? What do you think it is?
This one I'm kind of torn on. I think you got to give the Cubs credit. We've said many times their starting rotations let us down, and they're letting us down because they're really good pitchers. They're really, really good pitchers. Quintana threw a gem, absolute gem. Leicester was phenomenal. Postseason Leicester showed up. There's a lot to appreciate in that respect. At the same time, the Nationals are that talented, and this shouldn't be this bad. Like, I'm not saying go and score 12 runs a game, but go score 2 or 3 at least. Give your guys a chance. Because the Cubs bullpen isn't horrific, but it's by no means, New York Yankees quality. And they're coming in there and making them look stupid. I would hope it's not nerves, because most of these guys have played in the postseason the last year or two, at least 2 times in the last 2 to 3 years. They've been there, except Turner, of course. But then it comes down to roster construction, lineup construction, and it happened even again today. One of your best hitters, who we've mentioned is a long shot, at least a top 10 MVP candidate, and Anthony Rendon is still hitting 6th in this lineup. Baffling. Arrieta on the year, lefties have tons of power off of him, just tons. They're hitting like almost 260 off of him. You should be playing Adam Lind, who's actually had a few knocks off Arrieta, not Michael A. Taylor or something like that. There's a lot of little things that Dusty's just like, he's rolling out the same lineup every game because it's just a new day. It's not a playoff game, it's just a new day. And we're going to play this.
So I got a couple more things in this. Speaking of Michael A. Taylor, that blooper that ended up winning the game by Rizzo, as a center fielder, and maybe he wasn't the one to be closest, but it sure looked like he kind of stopped. How does none of them at least dive for that ball? Like, you knew that, like, you're getting to Wade Davis, and you're probably not going to get anything off of Wade Davis. The guy's been incredible. I just don't know how you don't get to that ball.
Yeah, and he's in the lineup for his defense.
Right.
Like, you have, like that whole saying, you have one job. One job.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to get it, but you commit and you at least make an effort to get there, because that's your ball. You just have to get there. Let's end on this. Obviously, the other series we just talked about is over, and rest in peace, Red Sox. Who ends up winning the series? Do you think the Cubs end up getting it because their pitching has been better, their bats have been a little bit better? Who do you think takes it?
This game 4 is really interesting to me because Arrieta really has struggled since he's had this like hamstring issue. Really has struggled. Now, if the good Arrieta shows up, which he kind of did his last little start, or they can piece it together in the bullpen, they're a million times better than Tanner Roark. Tanner Roark, he'll give you like 2 out of 10 really, really good starts lately. He just hasn't had it. And he's been so hittable. It's either the Nats offense has to wake up in game 4 or it's over tomorrow night. It's just it's Cubs to lose unless their bats show up. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think Arrieta is going to throw a gem. He had a great second half. He's playing for that next contract, and if he has an unbelievable postseason and they go to the World Series again, he's going to get paid. I don't know by who, but he's going to get paid.
Well, and this extra day of rest, it just makes a great manager like Joe Madden have more toys to play with out of the bullpen, so he can piece it together so well. Like he could go to Hendricks and then say Lester can pitch game 5. There's so many things he can do.
Yep, agreed.
Let's talk about the other ALDS game. Pretty much the best series in the postseason so far. It's been awesome. Home teams have held court. It looked like the Indians were going to run away with it, and then the Yankees said, "Not in my house." They have looked phenomenal. Really, really good. There's been a lot of storylines in this series. Let's go back to, I believe it was game 2 when Girardi did not challenge the play, and he took a lot of heat for it, and he even fessed up to saying, "I screwed up." If they don't advance, I know they've made it to game 5 now, which most people didn't think would happen. If they don't advance, does Girardi, like, what's his future hold?
No, I don't think he gets fired. I mean, Girardi the last few years and even this year, now granted Aaron Judge was amazing at the beginning of the season to go on the run that they did. They still don't have the greatest talent in the world to be doing what they were doing at the pace they were doing it, if that makes sense. And the last few years, I didn't think they were an 80-win team, and he somehow got them above 500 and had them relevant in the wild card picture. So I don't think, obviously, huge blunder. Huge. I mean, Lonnie Chisenhall didn't even act. Like, he didn't even move. Like, yesterday, I wasn't sure whether Marwin Gonzalez got hurt. And I thought might have been acting, and then he clearly got hit. Lonnie Chisenhall didn't move his hands, nothing. So that was a huge, huge mistake. And of course, the rest of it, I mean, Lindor ended up hitting that grand slam, and then they end up tying it, go to extra innings. So I don't think Girardi would be fired. I'm not sure what you think on that.
No, he won't get fired. If they would have got swept, I would have been like, okay, we need to really sit down and reevaluate, because we've questioned him many times on what the heck he's doing there. I don't think he's a good manager. I was shocked to see how many people were praising him. I didn't think he had that many loyalists out there. I don't think he's a good manager. Maybe I'm missing something, but he makes way more boneheaded decisions than I think he should. And I guess I just hold the Yankees and their, quote unquote reputation to a higher standard, where they should be able to have someone in there that gets the job done. But that's just my two.
I think he gets the most out of his players. I think that's where he's a good manager. Maybe the in-game decisions are a little bit different. Again, I watch a good amount of Yankee games, but I don't watch a ton, obviously, and that's why I probably have more criticism for Farrell. But, I think he just gets the most out of his players. I think some of the players, I think some of them aren't as talented as they've played this year. I think they've played over their head a little bit, some of them. So I think he gets the most out of them.
That's fair. Let's talk about another manager that does get the most out of his players, and we know you love Tito Francona, and I'm a big Tito fan, and he usually makes all the kind of weird decisions, but majority of the time they pan out really, really well. People question him throwing Bauer in Game 1. I loved it. I think you liked it. It worked out beautifully. But then he came back on short rest in Game 4, and I was still kind of like, well, you're up 2-1. Why waste that bullet now? I knew why he was doing it. What are your thoughts on him throwing Bauer in Game 4? Obviously, we're in hindsight now, and it didn't work out. But what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 3 days rest or whatever it was. It was kind of weird, and I went and looked back in September to see what the hell happened to Salazar and Clevenger, and I know Clevenger has pitched in the series already. Salazar was kind of coming back from his injury in August, out of the bullpen, but his last start was 4 2/3, 9 Ks, no 1 runs. And it was against Minnesota. So it was not like Minnesota was lying down. They had something to play for. And I really thought you should have went Salazar there. And then Clevenger had pitched 6 innings on September 19th. And then he pitched 3 bullpen appearances for an inning, a third. So clearly they were scaling him back a little bit to get him ready for the playoffs. But I didn't really agree with it. I think I would have went with Salazar, but they know their players better than I do. So I would have planned for that. And then you have kind of a bullpen game if Salazar does get blown up. And then you have kind of Bauer, you have Kluber start Game 5 like as you planned before with the 2 off days and the 2 games in between, so there's a normal rest. And then you have Bauer there if you need to. But it was very, very weird. He clearly, he was throwing like 98. But he didn't have location, didn't really have great stuff, and it didn't work out for him. And it's not a good situation right now for the Indians because 2-2, and it really should be over. It really should be Yankees Astros in the ALCS, which would have been crazy for everyone because we all went chalk. We didn't really see it coming, but they're very, very lucky that they actually got to Kluber back in Game 5 against CC Sabathia. That if they don't win that game, that's going to be the upset of the century. I mean, honestly, I know CC pitched well, but Kluber losing 2 games in a row, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty tough. Back on the Bauer thing, I'm not huge on bringing guys on short rest because usually even when it works out, you're only getting them for 4 or 5, maybe 6 innings, so it already makes it a bullpen game to begin with. So I'd rather have my guy with all his bullets and let him go deep, or at least make it a guy that you've seen do it before. Like don't be the guy that tests out the system. Make sure the system works before you use it. And that's why it's just surprising to Tito because he does the weird things, but it's always calculated and planned out. And this just seemed more like, well, we'll take our chances down at 2-2 if we have to. We'll have Kluber ready to go. It just didn't make sense. Yeah. Yeah,
we know Bauer has a few screws loose up there, Mr.
And he's been horrible on the road compared to at home this year. Horrible.
Yeah.
So
weird.
Just the weirdest. You mentioned CC spins a gym in Game 2. Absolutely amazing. And he's done that more often this year. He's done really well on the road compared to in Yankee Stadium. can CC A, keep it going tomorrow night? B, though, the real question I wanted, does this mean CC might really, like, is he the next Bartolo that's going to kind of be the guy that pitches 4 or 5 more years that should never have pitched 4 or 5 more years?
I don't think he'll be Bartolo, but I do think that he'll be back in a Yankee uniform next year. On maybe they'll do like a 1-year, $8 million deal or something like that, and just kind of have it. They did that. The Red Sox did that for Tim Wakefield. It was sort of like he had like a lifetime contract, but it wasn't guaranteed until the next year at $4 million. So that maybe they do something like that. I don't think he'll get the job done here. I think it'll be very emotional for him because obviously he started with the Indians. He had some great seasons there. That's where he kind of became the workhorse before he had that incredible playoff run with Milwaukee. So to be kind of an emotional game for him, I don't think he gets it done. And maybe it's not because he is bad, but I think Kluber is just going to throw a gem. I just absolutely think he's going to throw a gem.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think the Klub bot will be fully enforced. Let's talk about a couple bats. We'll start with Edwin Encarnacion. Got injured in the first inning of Game 1, going back to second base. I don't think he's coming back anytime soon unless I missed something. And ever since then, we can credit the Yankees pitching, but A, he crushes lefties, didn't get to face CC. It's a huge loss, and I thought their offense was such a juggernaut that, he was a big piece of it, but not this important. Is it just because they're facing great pitching, or is he this vital to the success of their offense?
I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, they ran into Severino, who had plenty of rest because he only pitched 1/3 of an inning against the Twins. And you knew, again, kind of like my Kluber thing, Severino's not going to have 2 bad starts like that. He's going to learn from that first start, and he did. So I think you lose a bat like that, especially with how hot he is in the second half. I was all over him after his bad first half. It's huge not having that bat in the middle of the lineup, especially where now you don't have to pitch. You're pitching around another guy. You're pitching around, Jose Ramirez. You're pitching around Lindor. And Lindor's batting. He had that huge hit, but he's batting 0.71. Jose Ramirez is batting 118. So they're not seeing as many pitches as they normally do because with Encarnacion out of the lineup, it's really, really a big loss. I think I think they'll overcome it in Game 5. And he might play, is what I saw. I saw a tweet that says he might give it a go. So you might see him at DH. Obviously, you won't see him in the field. So you might see him at DH there and have him give it a go and see how it pans out.
That'd be huge for the Indians. He just mashes lefties. Last guy, you mentioned Aaron Judge. He had the homer in the wild card game, big double yesterday. But overall, my goodness, talk about a guy that is not finding success in the postseason. If they advance, can they survive another round with Aaron Judge hitting like this? No,
they can't. I mean, they've gotten timely hitting. Greg Bird's got 2 homers. He's had a decent series. Aaron Hicks got a homer batting .313. But, Gary Sanchez, he's got 2 homers, luckily, but he's batting .211. So they can't survive him doing this again. I mean, unless he somehow bats 200, but all his hits are homers and they're like clutch homers, then that would be one way to do it. But in a 7-game series, you can't have him batting .067, striking out almost 80% of the time. You just can't. You just can't have that from your power hitter, number 2 hitter. Number 2.
Most definitely.
All right, let's get to this last series here. The Dodgers sweep the D-backs. The D-backs are not who we thought they were. Denny Green, rest in peace. And I didn't nail it. I didn't say they were pretenders. I just had a feeling that the Dodgers would be there. Before we get into a couple of our topics, any comments on the series? Any comments on anything that happened other than the topics we have?
I was shocked it was that easy for the Dodgers. I'm not shocked the Dodgers advanced. I'm shocked it was that easy. Like the D-backs didn't really put up a fight. It was pretty impressive domination. They got Darvish to show up, which was huge. Is what they traded him for. It was impressive to see. You saw Bellinger have his big moment. A lot to like there with the Dodgers, and I'm not happy about what's going to happen going forward.
All right, well, let's get to this. A couple of our topics we have. Clayton Kershaw, we'll start with him. He didn't have that great of a start in game one. Luckily, the bats crushed Taijuan Walker, which I have kind of a thought there too that I didn't add to the outline, but I'll ask you anyway after. Clayton Kershaw, 6 1/3, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 3 walks, which is crazy, 7 Ks. Is the back still an issue, or you think this was kind of a minor thing?
I think it's the back. We saw it for a month coming into this, and we saw it again there. And it's also all his postseason starts seem to end this way. He just, towards the end of his start, he gets blown up. He gave up back-to-back shots to like Mathis and Drury or somebody, 2 guys you shouldn't be giving up home runs to if you're Clayton Kershaw. And it's happened to him the whole last month. His back, he doesn't have the stamina he once had. And I think it's pretty evident. He can give you 4 or 5, sometimes 6 good innings, and then he just wears down. It's not there anymore. He can't, fully complete the delivery to locate right, and he just hangs pitches. He's never been like a dominant speed guy. So if he's not locating a fastball, he's going to get crushed. And this is why I'm concerned about him in the future. He needs to get this back fixed, and it's not that easy just to fix a back. So I'd be really wary. And in his starts, about the 5th inning or so, I'd have a guy start getting loose.
Very interesting. Well, they got a deep bullpen with Kenta Maeda's he pitched well out of the bullpen. So I want to stick with that game real quick, and this wasn't on there, but I want to stick with the D-back situation and how they went about with the starter. I didn't think that Taijuan Walker would start the game. I thought it would be Zach Godley. Zach Godley ended up pitching much, much better than Taijuan Walker. As we can see, Taijuan Walker went 1 inning, 4 earned runs, and Zach Godley went 5 innings with 3 runs, 2 earned, and 5 Ks. I thought that Godley was the better pitcher most of the season. Did you have the same feeling, or do you think they made the right decision?
I was shocked when they made this call. I thought it was foolish, absolutely foolish. Walker gives up tons of power to left-handed bats, gives up tons of home runs, period. He's a fly ball pitcher. It was hotter than bejesus for LA standards. So the ball's already going to fly in that game. And not even looking at those circumstances, you said it, Godley was a much better pitcher in the regular season. I don't know what that thought process was. Walker, if he's even on the playoff roster for me, was like an inning guy in the 6th inning or something. That was all he was going to be. So I don't understand that at all. It was confusing. I would have used him, like you mentioned, Kenta Maeda. I would have used him like Kenta Maeda, who might have found his new calling as a setup man. He's been great, and what he did last night was just pure filth. He was amazing in that 8th inning last night. So I don't know. The Dodgers did it right, and the D-backs didn't. Man, I'd love to know the thought process behind Taijuan Walker.
Yeah, I would too, and I wonder if maybe we could get sort of a question. I probably should ask that guy Tommy Stokey, but I kind of missed the boat there. But to transition to the entire pitching staff, we already mentioned Taijuan Walker. Greinke was not great he walked 5 guys in game 3. Robbie Ray was not great. Did they just finally run into a buzzsaw of the Dodgers lineup, or first time in the playoffs for most of these guys other than Greinke? What do you think about the pitching overall?
Yeah, it was very surprising because we were very high on their starting rotation. Tommy Stokey was high. It's something that we didn't expect to happen. One bad starter, something happens. But Robbie Ray, who's been dominant, he owned LA in LA this year. He owned them all season, but in LA, like literally his ERA was in the 1s. He was so dominant against them, striking out double digits in all 3 starts in LA. He couldn't do anything. Greinke got beat up in the wild card game, got beat up in this game. It was very, very strange to see how bad they were. The Dodgers are a very good team, but they've also been very quiet overall in the season when it comes to hitting. I was thoroughly shocked with this, and it'll bring up a lot of off-season questions for Arizona on how they go forward.
Yeah, completely agree, and we'll get into more of what's next for the D-backs, but I think just a quick note to kind of end the playoffs for them. Do you think this was sort of a flash in the pan, or is this something that they can sustain and keep it going in obviously a tough division where the Giants are going to be better next year and the Padres will continue to get better and rise as the young guys rise up into the organization.
Yeah, it's going to be very tough for the D-backs. They literally flipped their script this year. Were they 93 and 60 this year after going 60 and 93 or something the year before, 60 and 92? Yeah. That's remarkable. Like, so obviously you would imagine regression is coming. Like, that's just common sense. And it really is when you think about JD Martinez won't be there. Without JD Martinez, they weren't in the playoffs because Goldie went kind of cold in September. There's a lot of things they're going to have to look into. They're going to have to look if they're going to be sellers like we've talked about before. Are they going to go pick up a couple pieces and try to ride this out? Flash in the pan's a strong term. Like, I think they're still going to be very good, but they might be closer to 500 than a playoff team.
Yeah, they have to figure out the hitting situation. Obviously, they'll have probably Tomas come back and figure out whether, he can actually play a position. So that's a tough one. Like you said, Jake Lamb, Goldie will be fine. That's another situation to watch out for too, Paul Goldschmidt, because they try to re-sign him this offseason and just give him everything he deserves. They have him on a team-friendly contract right now. So I believe he has 2 years left, maybe one in an auction. I'm not sure exactly. I believe that's right. But that'll be interesting to watch. So that's the playoffs right now, Bubba.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But we mentioned it before that each of these teams, almost all these teams, had a big acquisition at the deadline. There's two deadlines. Either deadline, as I saw, Verlander was not the main deadline. What's your take on somebody like who has earned? I guess because a lot of these guys didn't get traded for much, but like say Verlander, Quintana, Darvish, they were great. JD Martinez, even Chris Sale technically was a trade, just not at the deadline. How do you evaluate like some of these teams? Are they winners or losers in this situation?
I think if we're just talking postseason, and actually I guess everything. I know Darvish wasn't great. I think they're all winners. I think the number one winner was the Houston Astros, and the reason for that is if there's no Justin Verlander, it's much, much different series because now do you have McCullers ready to pitch? You have Fires ready to pitch. And Morton didn't look great. He got out a bunch of jams yesterday. Peacock was just okay. And so I think it's the Astros are the main winner, followed by I think it's the Cubs just because, you'd have Lackey pitching probably because of Arrieta's hamstring and whatnot, and then a close third to the Dodgers. And it's crazy to say close third to the Dodgers because we had like a no-hitter through like 5 innings or whatever it was, and he pitched unbelievable. So close third there with the Dodgers, but they're all winners, and that's why you go get that starting pitcher. If you have a chance to win and you're a starting pitcher away, especially with the names of Verlander, Darvish, and Quintana, you go get those guys. You just have to do it. Yeah,
it is definitely the Astros. We were so furious when they didn't make a move at the first deadline, and then they finally did it, and it just shows if they didn't do it, this ugly. And then Quintana, he's right there because he's been really, really good. It's typical Quintana fashion. He's quiet. No one knows what he's doing. He just goes out there, pitches every 5th day, and he's great, like really, really good. And he was amazing versus the Nationals. I didn't think he'd be that good. He was amazing. That was his first career postseason appearance, period, not just start. So that was impressive to me, very, very impressive. But yeah, all these teams probably wouldn't be where they are without some help from one of these guys. But right now in the postseason, Verlander and Quintana, those are big, and it could help these guys because, like you said, the Quintana thing's even bigger because you'd have Lackey, and you don't want Lackey. You don't. Like, that's just bad. So that's huge, absolutely huge. All right, we're going to start a new segment from here till maybe a month out of the season or however long it takes us. I guess if I do math real quick, 15 weeks. So
good math, huh? Wow.
Real quick. So a little over 2 months. So by the new year, we should be done. Season in review. We're going to go backwards first. So this is going to be a painful episode for me, the fact that we're on the first round. But we'll start with the worst record in baseball. The team that gets the number 1 pick in the draft thanks to a home run by some fat Pudge in San Francisco. The Detroit Tigers, 64-98 record. First, before I even get into the questions, the record was horrible. By the end of the season, though, do you like where the Tigers stand?
Yes, because you got rid of a lot of money that you would have had, and it would have been tougher to get rid of. The Verlander thing is huge because he would just be a waste there. I know they had to eat a little bit of the money, but it was huge. Their farm system is up to 17th, and probably, according to Bleacher Report, after the minor league season, they're up to 17th from 24th. That's a pretty big move, middle of the pack, especially when their farm system was terrible. Probably 5 or 6 of the guys on there are guys they traded for. A couple of guys that, Candelario is going to be ready next year. We'll be probably playing third base if they're moving Castellanos to outfield. So unless they move, and let Miggy be the DH and Candelario be the first baseman, we'll see what they do there. But I think it's very, very big. They did a good job. They're going to have the number 1 pick thanks to our guy Pablo Sandoval. We're paying them all the money and you're not, so that's good for you. They're going to have that number 1 pick and probably going to have that number 1 pick the year after too. Minimum top 3, I would say, because they're going to be really, really bad next year. It's Michael Fulmer and that's it in the rotation. Matt Boyd was okay. We'll see when Matt Manning comes up and a couple of the other guys. But I think they're on the right track. I really do.
Yeah, they definitely, those moves they made, it changed so much. Like you said, they jumped up to the farm system up to 17th. Candelario even looked decent in the last month of the year, and he's only going to get better. So good. Paredes is another guy they got who's a good young talent. It'll be interesting to see. But like you said, it's going to take a few years, so don't get too excited yet. Let's talk. Brad Ausmus gone finally. What do you think's in store for Detroit in the managerial situation?
I've heard Lloyd McClendon, who's a Leland guy, and that would be his 3rd managerial opportunity. I would think. I know when I heard that, I tweeted it out and kind of said, you can't find a better guy to give a chance to, a guy that can develop young talent that's done it before. There's got to be guys out there that could get the chance to do that. And I wonder, that's not my job to get the names there, but I'm sure there's bench coaches out there that have been doing it for a while. I think Dave Martinez is a name that, he's been with Joe Madden forever. You wonder when he's going to get an opportunity. I mean, he developed a lot of guys with the Rays, developed a couple of the younger guys with the Cubs the last few years. So I wonder when he gets an opportunity. Alex Cora's name is always thrown out there. I'm hoping if they fire Farrell that they go get Alex Cora for the Red Sox. That's another name that's been thrown out there. And then, the retreads, Bo Porter and Ron Washington, are always guys thrown out there. But we'll see what they end up doing. Again, Jim Leland is like a advisor there, so he still has some pull. So if he has his way, maybe his guy Lloyd McClendon gets it. But it should be interesting to watch out for.
Yeah, I hope they go the younger route. It's like I said with the Marlins earlier this year. In this rebuild mode, you need a guy that can relate to all these young players, especially with the veterans that are going to be disappearing here shortly with the rebuild. They're going to need someone that's going to kind of keep them fine-tuned. And, like an Alex Cora or someone who's done the World Baseball Classics. He's got that, Latin background. A lot of these young guys they keep getting are Latin players. So this is a big thing. Like, as much as people gave Ozzie Guillen a hard time, that impact was huge for that clubhouse when he was there. The same thing can be said in Detroit. Some of the big names you're talking about that will be gone soon. You got Victor Martinez, got a year, $18 million. You got Kinsler, $10 million. Anibal Sanchez, a $5 million buyout, which is a pretty good idea. That's a steal. What do you think takes place with some of these roster moves?
They can't get rid of everyone, unfortunately. Like, if they could get rid of, V-Mart now, they probably would. But he may be a good guy, with 1 year and $18 million left. Might be a good guy to kind of mentor some of these players as a veteran. And then in the middle of the season, if someone needs a DH and he's having a decent year, then they'll go ahead and trade him to a playoff contender to kind of help out with that team as well. That's what I could see They're obviously going to pick up the Kinsler option because it's a $5 million buyout and only a $2 million option. So it makes complete sense there to pick him up. I think there's a possibility that he could be traded before the season. I really do. You know, I'm sure he wants to win. He's 35, I think, 36 maybe. So he's getting close to it. And he didn't have a great year. He's kind of obviously fading as they all do. So I think he could be traded before the offseason. And obviously, Anibal Sanchez is not picking up that $16 million option. There's no chance they're going to buy him out for $5 million. He's been really bad. So, you know, they have a couple guys that they have some leverage. But other than that, you won't see a ton. You'll probably just see, you know, some journeyman guys signed to fill, you know, an outfield spot, maybe, you know, maybe an infield spot and a journeyman starter, maybe a setup guy.
Yeah, the Kinsler one for sure is one that they need to trade. He can get a good return. He was a big topic of conversation at the deadline this year. So there are teams that could use him and really get something back for him instead of just letting him go. That's the one I think they need to do. Anibal's a no-brainer. But the rest of it, like you said, you can't just get rid of everybody. You have to at least put some kind of team out there that can, you know, resemble at least a 4A lineup. So V-Mart and all that stuff will happen, but that's why it'll take a few years. But you also got guys like Zimmerman at 3 years, $25 million. You got Miggy all the way to 2023 with 2 options. What do you do with guys like that?
Yeah, you can't do anything with Miggy. He just got to ride it out. That's a tough contract. Zimmerman, again, there were rumors the Red Sox were going to sign him when he signed with Detroit. I was thanking God they didn't sign him. That was just such a bad contract. And that 2-month start, everyone was like, oh, this guy, what a great signing for the Tigers. And we were all just like, yeah, let's wait a second here. His peripherals kind of aren't matching. So that's a rough one too. I mean, again, a nice veteran guy to kind of help the younger pitchers a little bit, but you know, tough one. And then the Prince money, I think it's $30 million through 2020, but I think that mostly is paid by insurance, I would assume. So I did add that in there just to kind of, because I kind of forgot about it, to be honest with you, that they still owe him $30 million per season through 2020. So it's a tough one there, but I would assume that insurance pays most of that.
Yeah, it should. Hopefully. Who stood out this year in a positive way going forward for the Tigers?
Well, it's when you look at these two teams, it's, you know, you'll go over the Giants more than I will, but you know, it was interesting to see. Obviously, we talked about Candelario. He had a great second half. That's going to be an interesting one to project next season. Mikey Matuk was decent. You know, I think with Tampa Bay the year before, he had like a hitless streak that was insane. It was like 40 at bats or something like that, maybe even more. So he was decent, but there wasn't much there. Castellanos is the guy that I'm going to research into this season to see, you know, because his hard hit percentage and a few other peripherals weren't really matching with what he was doing, and everyone thought he was going to kind of break out in the second half, which he kind of did, but kind of didn't. So that's the guy to kind of look out for. Should have third base and outfield eligibility next year. But yeah, not a ton going on with the Tigers and nothing really in the bullpen. I mean, Shane Green is okay. Decent ERA. The FIP was up near 4. And then got to see how Michael Fulmer bounces back. I'm not sure about the arm situation. So not a ton there to look forward to with the Tigers. It's just a couple of the young guys and then watch out for the farm system and see how those guys progress.
Yeah, I'm a big Nick Castellanos guy. I'm glad you mentioned him. He was really good this year, and not many paid attention to that. But that's a great piece to build around. If he continues to develop, that's the biggest question. But it'll be fun to see where he goes. And other than that, maybe Daniel Norris, can he finally become the guy that people thought he could be? I'm not sure what to do with that, but it'll be interesting. But other than that, Detroit Tigers, start rebuilding the draft, boys.
Oof, yeah, they need those guys to progress pretty quickly, so we're going to watch out for them too. Let's get to your boys' second overall pick in the draft next year. Very, very rough season, marred by a dirt biking accident and no offensive bats. It just I mean, that's really what really killed the season. I'm not saying they would have made the playoffs, but I'm saying they wouldn't have been 64-98. Let's start with this guy, Matt Cain. He's going to retire, it sounds like. They're going to buy him out of that contract. Had a decent career for you guys when you really went through the World Series years, and he was a great pitcher. I don't know if he was an ace per se, pretty close to it, probably number one for sure in his heyday. Just a couple words on Matt Cain from you.
Yeah, he is retired. He threw his last game. He said he wanted to retire a Giant. If you're a Giant fan, go read his Player Tribune piece. It was really, really good if you're a Giants fan. Like, I really appreciated it. It brought back tons of memories. He started from when he was a kid all the way through the system with Lincecum to his first year with the Giants to the World Series, all that stuff. It was really, really good. And he said he could have pitched another year or two, but he didn't want to go anywhere but San Francisco. So it's very, very impressive. He even threw pretty well in his last start the Saturday of the regular season. So, yeah, he's gone. It sounds bad that I'm glad he's gone because he just doesn't have it anymore. And the Giants are so bad at just hanging on to guys that help them win. They just love to do that every single time. So I'm glad he finally said, yeah, I'm out of here. This is the way it's going to go. So that'll be a nice transition. He's a really good guy that maybe he gets somewhere in the organization to help out with something. Who knows?
Yeah, there was a piece. I believe there was a piece on that in the Athletic or FanRag or somewhere that they were. I forget who wrote it. That said that the Giants are way too nice to their players in terms of like re-signing them and being sort of loyal to their guys, which has worked for them over the years, but it's kind of getting stale a little bit. I forget exactly where it is. I'll have to look it up. I think the big question this offseason is, and I think the answer is pretty simple based off of his injury and whatnot, is the Johnny Cueto opt-out. He mentioned in the preseason or in the middle of the season he wanted to go back to the AL, whether he hates hitting. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but what is your answer on the opt-out? Will he or won't he?
I don't think he will. It's tough to say just because if he opted out, he'd be one of the top targets in the offseason. He'd get paid pretty darn well. Just a matter of, will you get paid more than you will where you're at now? And is it a situation you want to be in? Those are the two question marks I have. Most likely, if someone's paying that kind of price for you, it should be a good landing spot. I know he doesn't like to hit, but at the same time, there's a lot to be said about pitching in the National League in that ballpark. There's a lot to be said about that. So I'd say it's like 70-30 at least that he stays. There's always that. Cueto's just a weird guy. You really don't know what he's going to do. He's goofy like that. But I think Cueto stays, and it'll help. They already picked up Matt Moore's option. So has nothing. They already picked up Matt Moore's option. So we got Lincecum, Cueto, and Moore 1, 2, 3 already lined up, and then you piece it from there. So I'd love him to stay and be a 1A.
Whoa, Lincecum is back?
I meant no, Bumgarner. Sorry, Bumgarner.
I was like, whoa, this is blast from the past. Perfect. Follow up on that. If he did opt out, would you be mad about it? Would you be okay with it?
I'd be mad if the Giants didn't use that money to get one or two of because we already have money to get at least one piece. If to not get another big bat or get another really good arm that's on the market to help replace Cueto, because the Giants have always been built when they're successful on a great starting rotation. So to just let a guy that we know had a rough year, but he was injured a ton, like blisters, all kinds of stuff, and he still pitched decent. He can be an ace if healthy, and we saw it from time to time. That's a huge loss if they just kind of let it go.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. But the only thing is, 32 going into next season, he's going to pitch. Is he going to wear down in the 2, 3, 4, or the last 3 years of the deal? You don't know, but I hear you there. You're looking kind of in the short term right now. You'll worry about that later. You mentioned Matt Moore, the option. He picked that up, so I think we both were in agreement when we talked about that before that they probably were going to do that. All right, there wasn't many things here. I mean, I think one of the offseason storylines for me, and we've talked about it, is And I'm at it here is what bat do they go get? Because we know they need one. Are they going to, they could be in the Stanton race, but do they have enough to get them? And then the easy one is probably JD Martinez.
They're in the Stanton race, and the reason they do have enough to get him is they'll pay for him. They will take the money from the Marlins. That's one thing they will do. We know Jeter doesn't care about the prospects. He wants to get rid of the money.
Do you know what's funny about that is the talk in Boston is like they're going to need to give up Benintendi or Betts along with like a Bradley and another prospect to get him. So I very weird that people think that like they actually need to give up a lot. I think we both think that maybe one deep, really, really good prospect, but after that, they just want to rebuild and get rid of the money so that they don't have to pay anything. And plus, he has the opt-out.
Yep. No, that's all it is.
Yeah, it's really all it is. So it's a very weird thing for me, and obviously it's going to be one of our big topics probably every week after the World Series. Okay, I'm going to ask this question, Bubba. I'm going to see how you answer it. Who stood out this season?
Is this supposed to be a positive question?
I don't. I mean, you can take it any way you want. Who's going to bounce back next year? Who is catching your eye in the farm system? I don't really know how to really take it for you.
I guess what stood out is, for once, and it took a while until they finally agreed, where I think we're screwed. They at least let a lot of young guys play. That's something the Giants never do. Never do. And this at least lets us know exactly where we stand, where we need to make adjustments. I don't think a full rebuild, retool is necessary for the fact that so many guys, it wasn't just one or two guys, so many guys underachieved. If most of the guys, like 75% of the guys played at the back of their baseball card, baseball team. You had Belt out forever. Panic wasn't great until late in the year. Crawford sucked. Third base was a mess, especially once Nunez was gone. Pence was horrible. Span was decent. Posey was the only consistent thing they had. So we got that to look at. I love some of the pieces in the minors we got coming. I got Beatty. Shaw's a monster. The rest of their minors are super young. A lot of single A, some double A pieces. Arroyo, I loved Arroyo getting action. I won't keep going on and on. There were things to like, just nothing that resulted in W's, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's it's going to be that preview when we preview it in the winter is going to be very, very interesting depending on what they do in the offseason. I'm kind of excited for it, to be honest with you.
I have a question for you on the farm system rankings. When were those updated?
So the one that I have, and I should have mentioned it to you, is it was from Bleacher Report, and it was at the end of the minor league season, so September 13th. So they had them at 26th, and the previous one, which was in the midseason, I believe, was 26.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious because I know most places, they're not high on the Giants system, but then you start asking guys questions on it, and they're like, oh, yeah, this guy's good. This guy's good. It's just they're so young. They're like all so deep down there. So that's why I'm curious. I really want to see, after the Fall League and after, the Dominicans and all those winter leagues, and, we get the new rankings out before the season. I'm curious to see where things change, especially after they get the number 2 pick in the draft. That can't suck. So that's the only good part. I didn't mention that. They have the 2nd pick, and on the Ringers MLB podcast, I'll give them a shameless plug here because they do some interesting stuff. The Giants are one of like 4 or 5 teams that have never had the number 1 pick ever. Pablo took him out of the chance there, but I was looking at the prospects they had on there. A couple of the guys, like obviously I know Christian Arroyo, and they have him as a tier 1. We'll see if he can really do it. Maybe not fantasy wise, he can't do a ton, but because he just doesn't have a ton of power. But Chris Shaw is an interesting guy. Reynolds, interesting guy at high A. And a couple of the other guys. So yeah, like you said, they have they have 3 guys at AAA, and then Slater at the MLB, and then the most of them are at high A. So that the next year will certainly be a turning point for the Giants farm system. And as you mentioned, you have to watch out for the 2017 draft to see how those guys progress, whether they go to A ball or high A or still go to short season.
And then obviously that draft is going to be huge for you guys.
Yeah, that high A team, San Jose, I get to go see them a lot. So that's why I kind of have my personal bias maybe, but I've witnessed what they can do there. And their top pick in this last draft, Helio Ramos, a lot of reports, people coming out saying they love him, but he did miss like over a month with an injury already. And he got hit in the face. Like, it was stupid. So, but he's supposed to be really, really good. So we'll see.
Yeah, they have him at 4 behind Arroyo, Shaw, and Reynolds. So he's already up there.
Okay. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition. Next week, we'll have the ALCS and NLCS already popping. It'll already be going on. So we'll have tons to talk about there. We'll see how the Indians-Yankees wrapped up. We'll see how the Cubs-Nationals. What did Dusty Breaker screw up again? And then we'll already have a game or two into the next round, closer to the World Series, closer to the last day of your life. It's just so much going on. But any final thoughts? Any final thoughts while you have freedom, Mo?
My voice still hurts from ranting about the Red Sox. There'll be more ranting in the offseason because I'm sure they'll screw something up. And like I said, final point on that gut feel, I'd clean house. I really would. I'd even fire Dombrowski. I don't think it will be left in a better place if they don't get rid of him now. I think you need a younger and more energetic guy, analytical, farm director. They had Mike Hazen. You look what he did with Arizona. I'm a little bit worried there that I don't think we'll turn into the Detroit Tigers because we have too much talent, but man, I just don't want that to happen to us. I really don't. But it's going to be the rest of the playoffs. That Yankee-Indian series has been unbelievable. That game should be awesome tomorrow. And then, we'll see what happens with, the Nats and Cubs and see what Dusty Baker screws up again.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We'll get it in. Everybody, Around the Bases, episode 33. Check it out on Twitter, @AroundTheBasesPod. Mo is @Boston_Mo. I am @BD Entrick. Until next time, enjoy the baseball. Catch you guys later.
See ya.